All attendees are in listen-only mode.
I'd like to welcome everybody to today's webinar about WilsonPro Cell Boosters. I'm Kim Robbins, Senior Marketing Manager at BTX, and I'll be your host throughout this session. The ability to use your cell phone or other mobile devices inside a building isn't a convenience anymore, it's essential. It's a requirement that every business has the best cell phone reception possible within their facility. In the past, the cost to add or improve coverage inside a structure has been prohibitive. WilsonPro has changed that with their patented line of products that are both affordable and easily installed. Michael Copeland from WilsonPro is the Commercial Support Manager and will be leading us through this presentation so that we can learn both about the products and applications. Michael is an expert in commercial booster solutions, working with integrators and installers, helping specify the right solution. Now that I've discussed what the session will entail, I'd like to go through a bit of housekeeping. We'll be recording the session and making it available after the call. We'd like to make our webinars as interactive as possible, so please use the question area on your toolbar and we'll answer as many questions as we can throughout the session. For nearly 50 years, BTX has been the premier AV distributor of emerging technologies, signal processing products, and integration essentials, offering our customers access to solutions to grow their business. Our focus lies firmly in creating value by delivering outstanding products and services. BTX supplies many thousands of the finest interface, integration, and system products, as well as engineer our own unique and patented solutions. We have deep technical expertise on all of the solutions that we provide, and our applications engineers, inside and outside sales teams, are readily available to help you specify, purchase, and then support your project requirements. Our full product line card offers thousands of products to make implementation of your projects run smoothly. Among the many key integration building blocks that we provide are custom cable assemblies, custom plates and panels, video extenders, signal distribution, and cable management. When you work with BTX, you work with a team of people whose mission it is to bring you new ideas to excite your customers, enhance the elegance of your design, and drive revenues and profits to your bottom line. Now on to the main attraction as I hand this over to Michael. Okay.
All right, well, good morning, everybody. Kim, thank you so much for the introduction. And again, thank you, everybody, for taking the time to join this presentation today. Again, my name is Michael Copeland, and just a little bit more background on me. I've been in the industry for a little over 2.5 years now. I came from a competitive company that specialized in commercial solutions, and so that's really where I cut my teeth in the booster world, was on the commercial side. So I've worked with many integrators. I've done a lot of training, been to site installs, provided configurations, and lots of sales support. And so I'm fairly knowledgeable in this industry, and I hope to be able to share that knowledge with you, and moving forward be able to provide you with support as well. So I'm going to go ahead and get started on the presentation here, and as Kim said, if anybody has any questions as we go, please sure to use that chat window to provide those questions, and we'll get those answered for you. So part of the introduction, we talked about WilsonPro. WilsonPro is a division of Wilson Electronics. Wilson Electronics is our main company. That's the company that manufactures the products. Wilson Electronics has been in the industry for over 45 years now. We're really a pioneer in the cell booster world. Our owner, Jim Wilson, he's kind of an engineering background. He came more from two-way radios, ham radios, and early telecommunications. As cell phones became more and more popular and more part of everyday life, he saw a need for something to improve that cell signal in buildings, and so he started doing his engineering and came up with a product to do boosters. And early days, we started off with single band products, evolved into dual band, 3-band, and now 5-band products. And I'll talk about that more here shortly. But we really are an innovator in this industry. We're really the front runner. We hold multiple patents in the booster technology world. Wilson currently shares upwards of 85% of the market. So this is really, we're really a dominant player in this industry. Everything from mobile to consumer to commercial like we're going to talk about today. Wilson Electronics has worked closely with the FCC in developing standards for cell boosters. Just a little bit of background, and kind of this is very useful too in understanding the product and moving forward. There used to be kind of a black cloud over this industry. There were issues with the carriers. The carriers weren't very supportive of signal boosters, and this was really because they caused problems on the network. There were no regulations, and so there were boosters out there by some manufacturers that were too strong, didn't have safety features in place to prevent them from interfering with the network, and so they were causing problems. And so the carriers went to the FCC a few years ago and said, you know, we need to address this. And the FCC understood and agreed, but also acknowledged the fact that there is still a need for signal boosters. There is a place, and the FCC understood that they needed to come to an agreement to be able to allow signal boosters to still be offered to customers and consumers needing them. So the FCC and the carriers worked together, and they got the manufacturers involved, and they came up with some regulations, and what this is basically called are network protection standards. And so in May of 2013, a new FCC ruling came down offering more control and direction for signal boosters. And so since that took place in May of 2013, it's really opened up the doors for this as a viable, acceptable solution. You know, all the boosters are under new regulations. The beauty of these regulations, though, is they prevent problems to the network, and that's really what the carriers are looking for. So now all boosters approved by the FCC meet these standards and are therefore used on the network, accepted by the carriers, don't cause any interference issues, which is ultimately the most important part. And like I said, it's just really opened the door for this. We're seeing exponential growth in this industry, and forecasting for 2016, we're expecting a major boom. And this is based on some new relationships that are in the works, some new, you know, just different agreements, and some really big players in this industry getting on board even more with these boosters. We are an American manufacturer. All of our products are manufactured in the U.S. We're based out of St. George, Utah. But we also have some other branches. We have an office in Dallas where we have a lot of engineering, actually. And Dallas is really a hotbed for cellular technology and cellular communication. So we've gone out and hired some of the best engineers in this industry. So we have an office there in Dallas. We have an office in Atlanta. Myself, I'm out in California. We've got some folks in Colorado. So we're a large company, and we have a lot of support all throughout the country. So, like I mentioned earlier, Wilson Electronics is our company name. Just to clarify some things, you might hear different names used, and there might be a little bit of confusion there. So, just to kind of clear things up. So, Wilson Electronics, that was our name. That's what we operated under. That's what we were known for many, many years. About a year and a half ago, we decided to change our company name. And so we transitioned over to the name WeBoost. Well, we quickly learned that Wilson Electronics was a known name. It was a recognized name, and changing the name, frankly, really hurt us. And so we are in the process of transitioning back to the Wilson Electronics name with 3 sub-brands under that heading. So we've got the WilsonPro line, the WeBoost line, and the ZBoost line. For everybody on this call, the WilsonPro line is really what you're going to want to focus on. This is our premium grade commercial solution. This is what you want for buildings. The WilsonPro product is designed, it's engineered, the parts, you know, the components, everything that goes into it is geared towards commercial grade. Being able to handle more space, being able to handle more simultaneous users, more data going back and forth. And so WilsonPro is really the way you're going to want to go. That's really what you want to focus on and promote when you're working in commercial spaces. From WilsonPro, like I said, we're still keeping the WeBoost line, the WeBoost name, but this is going to be covering our consumer products. So this will be covering residential, home solutions, desktop solutions, things of that nature. And then lastly, and mobile products as well are under the WeBoost name. And then lastly, ZBoost. This is a company that we actually purchased a couple of years ago. they were another player in the booster industry, and that was a company that Wilson purchased. And Z-Boost is a low-cost value brand. It's kind of a one-room solution, Amazon type of product, low cost, really not designed for commercial spaces. But just something to emphasize and make sure you're aware of is you're going to still get customers calling you up and referring to us as WeBoost. And so you'll get customers calling up and saying, hey, I need a WeBoost booster, I need a WeBoost product, whatever the way it is. But the best way to approach this is to qualify it as what kind of solution are they looking for. They may be asking for a WeBoost product, but they likely need a commercial product, and they might not be familiar yet with the WilsonPro name. They might have just seen an older ad that referenced WeBoost as the company. So just because they ask for a WeBoost product, make sure that's what they really want. If they're looking commercial, steer them towards WilsonPro. Make sure you're proposing and selling a WilsonPro product. In the end, you'll be much happier. The customer will be much happier. It's really the solution for commercial. So just don't get stuck. If they say WeBoost, don't just narrow in on just the WeBoost product. Make sure we're getting them the right product. So all the Wilson electronic product is quality tested. We test all of our products after manufacturing at our facility there in St. George, Utah. We test all of our products for 8 different quality control standards, and that's everything from uplink to downlink power to gain to automatic shutdown. All the features that are important to the functionality of this product, we test each individual booster before it goes out so that you can be assured that you're getting a viable quality product that's not going to fail on you in the field. So some of the services we offer from Wilson, we offer no-cost installer training. That's something I can coordinate with you and or your customer. It's a product, again, we'll get into this more in greater detail. It's not an overly complex product, but there is a level of understanding that needs to be had. There's basic details, basic behaviors of cellular technology and cellular signal that's very helpful in understanding how to utilize and maximize the performance of boosters. And so we do offer an installer training. That's a course I conduct as well. I've been providing installer training for over 2 years now, and I've created the programs and worked with engineers and real-world experience as well, not just theories of how it should work. It's all of it's based on feedback I've gotten over the years from installers as they've had more experiences. I've kind of tapered and customized the training to really address things that are real and viable that happened out there. We offer no-cost system design. So again, it's not an overly complex product, but again, there needs to be an understanding, and we don't want you or your customer or the installer to kind of just have to go out there and wing it, right? So we're more than happy to provide a system design support, and basically what that consists of is having you or the customer provide us with a floor plan. We have a basic questionnaire that we ask that you complete that asks for things like signal strength and dimensions of the building and wall materials and just to kind of get a snapshot of the space we're working in so that we can move forward with providing you with a system design. And all we do is basically something similar that you see on the screen there to the right. We take the floor plan based on the information you've provided. We provide you with a general layout. And again, it's not overly complex, it's not real fancy, but we don't want to complicate this solution. We don't want to make this, we don't want to intimidate anybody with this, and we don't want to scare anybody away because it's not that complicated. So we provide you with a basic layout, and it gives the installer an idea of how they should lay this out. Now there's going to be tweaks. They don't have to follow this to a T. Chances are they won't be able to follow this to the T. And it just gives them an idea though of, okay, this is where I should try to mount my boosters, this is where I should try to mount my antennas, and obviously the customer, the installer will have to figure out where they're going to run the cables and exactly where they're going to mount the antennas and where the access points are going to be, and telecommunications closets or wherever it may be, right, that they put that booster. And so, but we provide you with this basic layout so that you can go in there armed with some understanding and some sense of how to lay the system out, and then they follow that and move forward from there. So that's a service we provide, and it's something that I recommend that you take advantage of. You want to work through BTX to get that information over to us to get those system designs taken care of for you. But yeah, working with BTX, it's the best route to go. Provide them with the information or contact them, letting them know you need a system design, and we can work with you to get that taken care of. Wilson does offer a 30-day money-back guarantee. You know, if the product doesn't work, if it's just not the right solution for you, we offer that full 30-day money-back guarantee. And lastly, we offer a 3-year warranty, and really that's unheard of in the electronics world. You know, it's hard to warrant an electronic product for 3 years, but it just really goes to show the quality and the confidence we have in the product. These products just don't fail. They're very high quality. There's not a lot of moving parts. You know, it's basic electronics, filters, and boards and things of that nature. And so it's not overly, you know, it just doesn't fail. And that's why we're confident in being able to offer you a 3-year warranty on all of our products, all of our WilsonPro products. So, you know, we all get this, right? We've all been in a building. We've all been somewhere where our cell phone just doesn't work. And so many of us blame it on the carrier. Oh, this carrier's terrible. I never have any service anywhere I go with this. And, you know, really it doesn't come down to the carrier. The carriers, for the most part, are fairly similar. Obviously, some have somewhat better coverage than others in certain areas. But much more of the issues we run into when we're in buildings is building materials. And so, you know, and I'll get to that in the next slide, but, you know, really, what's the opportunity out there? Again, we've all experienced this, but we all know everybody has cell phones. They've become a mainstay in today's society. They're a staple of everybody being able to function out there. You know, upwards of 90% of American adults own a cell phone. Of those, 47% own smartphones. 42% of American adults own a tablet computer, and that's growing as well. People are using tablet computers more than laptops, and it's just becoming the predominant device these days. Unfortunately, though, even though so many people have cellular devices, there's still upwards of 70% of people that own devices experiencing dropped calls. Likewise, 77% of internet users experience slow download speeds. And we've all experienced this. This is not uncommon to us, and it's something we can all relate to, and we know that our customers can relate to this. You know, some recent studies have shown that you know, it's even though it's such a mainstay and a solution that we all need, it's not something that building designers and architects take into consideration. There was a recent study done of over 600 architects and construction firms done, and of those 600 companies, 45% of them said that they don't take into consideration making sure that a cellular signal gets into the building. So these buildings are being designed and built with you know, all kinds of materials that are kind of the enemy to signal, and it's just not being taken into consideration, and that's where we come in. You know, cell signal needs to start to be taking, you know, people need to start to take a look at it as almost like a utility, similar to water or electricity coming into a building. Cell signal needs to come into a building. People are reliant on this every day, and this is nothing new to everybody on the call. I know you can all relate. You're all shaking your head saying, yep, I've been in a place where my phone doesn't work, and you know, a lot of us, like I said, we blame it on the carrier, and it rarely has to do with the carrier. It has to do with the building. It has to do with what's going on in the environment we're in. And again, you know, what causes this? It's caused by a lot of different things. Topography, you know, where is the tower located in relationship to the building? Are there hills in the way? Are there trees in the way? You know, what's in the way there's all kinds of things that obstruct the view or the signal from coming to the building. As buildings are being built smarter, they're being built with more concrete, you know, low E roofing, UV rated windows, you know, metal siding, whatever it may be. All of these materials are really the enemy to cell signal. And so as these buildings continue to be built, they're not taking into account the need for cell signal. And again, that's where we come in. And it's over and over, you know, concrete and metal are really the biggest problem for cell signal. And you know, I'm out here in the San Francisco Bay Area, and they're building more and more commercial buildings all the time, and every single one I see go up is being made with solid 12 inches, anywhere from 8 to 12 inch solid concrete slab walls. Cell signals are not going to get into a single one of those buildings. And again, that's where we come in. This is why this is such a huge opportunity, and I think that's why a lot of you have recognized this as something of use to you. So how do we solve this? Wilson Electronics. We've got a gauntlet. We run the gauntlet of solutions for any situation where your customer is experiencing poor signal or poor cellular reception in a building. So what are the basic components? So for those not familiar with this, it's pretty simple. There's not a lot here. We deal with the signal booster. That's the blue box you see in the middle. That's where all the work is done. That's where all the electronics are housed. That's what takes that signal and boosts it and gives it amplification and makes it a viable signal for usage for a cell user. Indoor and outdoor antennas, I'll go into more detail on this, but we have to capture that signal outside. We're not creating a signal. We're just taking an existing signal that's outside, boosting it, bringing it into the building. So indoor and outdoor antennas, so it requires a roof-mounted antenna, and then indoor antennas to provide the coverage to bring that signal in. Obviously, cabling. For most larger commercial jobs, we really urge you to go with commercial-grade cable, something comparable to an LMR 400 cable. You can use some smaller cables like RG11 and things like that, but you have to be very mindful of the signal loss. And so the longer your cable runs may be, the better quality cable you want in there to minimize that loss. Again, it's all about keeping that signal strength strong. And so, you use a low-loss coax cable, use a 400 grade cable. It keeps that signal strong over longer lengths and ensures that the booster is going to be able to perform at max capability. And then lastly, lightning protectors. Again, you've got an antenna on the roof. Chances are it could take a lightning strike, especially in a situation where they're susceptible to lightning, and you want to protect that investment. You don't want the customer's booster to get fried because that antenna takes a lightning strike. So how does it work? Like I said, it's fairly simple. It consists of an antenna on the roof. Right now, and this is something we can get into more detail as you get into specific jobs, but just to let you know, make sure you're aware that there are options here. Wilson currently offers just a Yagi directional antenna. This is much more of a directional antenna. You point it in the direction of the signal. It brings that signal in. But we are in the process of adding omnidirectional antennas to our product line as well. So omnidirectional antennas are more circular. They just grab that signal from every direction, pull it into the booster. And so we are going to have options here for each job. So you basically place that external antenna on the roof. It reaches out to the tower. It finds that signal that's out there for the carriers, grabs it, adds a little bit of gain to it. Our Yagi antennas have some gain, anywhere from 5 to 7 decibels of gain. Brings it into the booster. The booster then receives that signal, amplifies it, and then pushes it out to the interior antennas. And you can use multiple indoor antennas, and basically the way you feed those is through splitters and again through the cabling. So you run that signal in, goes through the booster, from the booster to the indoor antennas. Those indoor antennas take that signal and push it out through the building and ensure coverage all throughout. It's very similar to stereo technology. Stereo frequencies, radio frequencies, they're all around us, but we can't hear them, we can't see them, but they exist. Every day we're being bombarded with these frequencies. And the way a stereo works, right? You take that tuner, you tune it on, it's got the antenna, it finds that signal, and the tuner makes it something that's understandable and audible, and then pushes it out through the speakers so you can hear that frequency that you weren't able to before. Cell booster technology is very similar. It finds that signal, it pushes it through the booster, turns it into something that's understandable by our devices, and pushes it out throughout the building. And the indoor antennas are similar to a speaker. Obviously, they're two-way, right? They're receiving as well as transmitting. But in general, it's very similar technology, and it's a way you can relate it to the customers of how this works. And lastly, you can use multiple boosters to cover larger spaces. So if you have a large, this is a viable solution in spaces, I mean, it's really limitless. For most novice or early installers, early experienced installers of the product, it's probably better to stick with things 100, 200,000 square feet, but really the coverage is limitless. It just really depends on how many boosters you want to put in place. But we've had successes in 36-story high-rise buildings in Los Angeles. I was just up in Minnesota this beginning of this week, and I was at a college up in that area where our boosters were being used, and we had 5 buildings covered with 2 to 4 boosters in each one, and so hotels. We'll get into kind of the market here in a minute. But again, the more coverage you need, you just add more boosters. And the beauty of this technology is you don't have to work with carriers. You don't have to get carrier involvement. It's not something that's required. The carriers have accepted this technology. The carriers have signed off on this technology. The carriers have even issued letters to the manufacturer stating that they approve the use of signal boosters on their network. So it's a beautiful solution. It's low cost, easy to install and roll out, and again, it's very hassle-free compared to other solutions out there. So it is always good to pre-qualify an opportunity. Like I said earlier, we're not creating a signal. We're working with an existing signal. So you want to make sure that there is a signal in place. So when you're talking to a customer, or when your customer is talking to one of their customers, your installers, or whoever it may be, you do want to ask some basic questions up front. You want to make sure that we make sure that the product's going to work. We don't want to go out there and have a situation where it's just not going to work. And it's easy to make sure this is the case before moving forward. So it's always good to make sure you know the square footage of what needs to be covered. Some installers, some VARs take the approach of just targeting the key areas or the critical areas that need coverage. But most installers just cover the whole building, right? Let's just get you a solution. Let's make sure that every corner of this building's got cell coverage. In order to do that, you want to make sure you get the square footage of the space. Our boosters are pretty much rated by how much square footage they're going to cover, and this is determined by the outside signal strength, and I'll get into that here in a second. But again, know the square footage of the building. This is very critical in making sure we get enough coverage, we get enough boosters, we get enough antennas. Even for that, the design I showed you folks earlier, each antenna is going to cover a certain amount of square footage, and really the only way to determine how many antennas are needed is by knowing that square footage. So when you're working on an opportunity, make sure that you get the square footage. Even for that initial quote, the customer, hey, I just want to see if this is something in our budget. I just need an introductory quote. Let's make sure we get the square footage there. Like I said, outside signal strength is critical as well. There's a couple approaches here. The recommended approach is for the installer to invest in a signal meter, or something maybe even BTX may want to consider is having some signal meters on hand that maybe you loan out to your customers to take signal readings. What happens a lot is people may use their cell phone to determine the existence of an outside signal. This works, but the problem you run into is, one, the cell phone is not very accurate. It jumps all over the place. I experienced that myself this week on site up in Minnesota. I was seeing very sporadic readings outside. There was no consistency. Every which way I turned my body, the signal strength would change on my cell phone, and it just still was not very accurate. So, people might sometimes want to use a cell phone and say, yeah, when I go outside, I'm able to make a call, or I look at my phone and there's 3 bars, so your booster will work. Yeah, the booster will work, but the problem you're running into is you're only getting information at that point on one carrier and one frequency. I go out there with my Verizon phone, I see 4 bars. Great, I've got a good strong 4-bar, I've got a good strong signal from Verizon, but I have no idea what AT&T is doing. I have no idea what T-Mobile is doing, Sprint, US Cellular, whatever it may be. And our boosters are 5-band. They're non-carrier specific. They're carrier agnostic. So we're boosting all of the carriers. And not only are we boosting all of the carriers, but we're boosting both voice and data for all carriers. So when that customer goes outside and uses just their phone and they sign off on it and say, yeah, your booster will work, it'll work for that one carrier, but it doesn't help us determine how it's going to work for all the other carriers. And so, again, I really emphasize that you invest in signal meters. Really recommend and urge your customers to invest in a signal meter. And I'll show you a slide here in a few minutes, but Wilson does offer a signal meter. We also offer a starter kit that offers a booster and a signal meter at a very low cost for that. Basically the signal meter is almost thrown in there for a few dollars more. It's very discounted. And so when you're working with a customer, and this may be their first job, recommend that they purchase the kit that includes the signal meter. It's really a quality tool. I can't emphasize this enough. The beauty of the signal meter, and again, I'll show you a slide later, but I really want to emphasize this, is the signal meter shows all the frequencies. And when I talk about all the frequencies, what I'm referring to is there's 5 basic frequencies that the carriers use. There's the LTE, which is a 700 megahertz frequency. This is what Verizon and AT&T use for their data. So there's the low 700 band and the high 700 band. And these are what the 2 biggest carriers, like I said, AT&T and Verizon, use for their LTE or their data. In addition to the LTE, we also have the cellular band. The cellular band is the 800 megahertz frequency. And then likewise, there's the PCS band, which is the 1900 megahertz frequency. Cellular and PCS are what we call our 2G and 3G frequencies. What takes place over these 2 frequencies is voice calls for almost all of the carriers and 3G data for all of the carriers. So before LTE, before 4G, these 2 frequencies is where all the carriers live. This is where they all did all of their voice and their data, and this is where still all of the carriers do voice and data, with some exceptions. But again, even on the exceptions, we've got you covered. And then so from the PCS and cellular, we go to the AWS band, which is our 2100 megahertz band, and this is what T-Mobile uses for their data. Now recently, Verizon started to do some voice over this frequency. Our booster doesn't have a problem with that. As long as we boost the frequency, we don't care if it's voice or data going over that frequency. We're able to support it, give it boost, provide it coverage. So, just to summarize, 5 bands, 2 LTE bands, a PCS, a cellular, and an AWS. There's a lot of words people use in the industry for these. Like I said, the names there, the megahertz, 700, 800, 1900, 2100. You'll see them referred to as bands. Band 17, band 13, band 5, band 2, band 4. It's a little bit more technical. It's not a necessity. It's not a requirement to be able to sell this product. What the takeaway needs to be here is, yeah, we've got you covered. We cover all of the bands, all of the frequencies that all the carriers use. These are frequencies that were auctioned off by the FCC to the carriers for the use of cellular devices, cellular communication, be it voice and data. We've got you covered. And so that signal meter allows you to read all 5 of those and know, yes, you're going to have good, strong signal. You're going to have good coverage for all the carriers for both voice and data, or be able to set the expectation. You know what? I apologize, customer. Your T-Mobile data frequency, your AWS frequency, is poor in this area. So we might not be able to give you as much coverage on T-Mobile data, but we've got you covered on everybody else, or whatever it may be. But the only way to really know that and be able to set that expectation and talk to that is to have a signal meter and get accurate signal readings for all of those frequencies. You go out with that cell phone, you don't have that opportunity. You're not going to have that information. And again, I really emphasize this. I would say most of the technical support calls, most of the problems that occur out there after an install, after they put the system in and they're not getting the coverage they expect, it's because when they initially qualified the scenario, qualified the opportunity, they just relied on that cell phone. So I know I'm just keep talking on it, but again, I can't emphasize how important this is, how critical this is to getting maximum performance out of the booster. That signal strength is where everything starts. That outside signal, that's what we need. So, and it helps us determine coverage area. It helps us determine what type of antennas, how many boosters. I mean, it really plays into the whole overall maximum performance. And again, you got an installer going out. They could be walking around with a cell phone. The end user is going to be looking at the installer going, well, heck, I could have done that. But they show up with this nice, sophisticated tool, this nice device in hand. It looks more professional. It conveys that this is a professional product, a professional installer doing this job. So I'll get off the signal meter topic, but only for a short time. I'm going to bring it up again so everybody gets that.
I did get a couple of questions that had come in, so I just want to emphasize because you've certainly gone through the absolute necessity of going out with a signal meter. So BTX has two different things. We have a toolkit that we're calling it a toolkit for integrators out there who are going to be picking up, and offering this line. So that's something that we would certainly encourage all of our integrators and installers to purchase. And we also sell the signal meter by itself. But I got an interesting question, so I thought I would ask it. So somebody asked if there is going to ever be an application that will allow you to do what the signal meter does, like a cell phone application or an application used on another device.
Sure. It's a good question. There are apps out there, but again, the issue is your phone is only designed to read one of those frequencies. That's one area here. The carriers don't play nice with each other. We all know that, right? Verizon's got a heck of a campaign running right now with those little balls rolling down the trays and showing how much better they are than everybody else. And so until the carriers are willing to play nicer together, I would speculate that there will not be a device or an app like that, because in order for that app to work, your phone would have to be able to detect and pick up the other frequencies out there, not just the one it's currently designed to do, right? So there are apps out there right now, but again, they only give the signal reading, the signal strength for the carrier of the device that app is on. I have one on my phone. I just deleted it yesterday because I needed more space. But if you do a search in the Google Play Store or the Apple Store for cell signal strength, you'll see a bunch of apps. But again, they're only designed to work. My Verizon phone is using the LTE, the high LTE frequency, and in some areas PCS, in some areas cellular. So it's only going to read the frequency that my phone is. So that would be awesome if it did, if there was an app out there like that. But right now, until the carriers play nicer together and have more willingness to help each other and be able to read the competitors' frequencies, I don't see anything in the near future to be able to do that.
All right, so I've got a couple of other questions that came in. So can this system be used to cover emergency responder frequencies as well?
This current product does not. The public safety and the emergency responder frequencies, they operate on different frequencies outside of what cellular does. And so our equipment at this time is only designed for the cellular frequencies. We are looking into that. We are considering that. We are looking into public safety amplification, public safety boosters. But those are different frequencies than what we currently support. So no, this one won't support the public safety or the emergency responder frequencies.
Do you need to install an antenna per carrier aimed at the various towers, or how do you locate the towers?
Really good question. Really good question. So there's a few tools out there. There's a website called cellreception.com. Cellreception.com is a great site to be able to locate carrier towers. Basically what you do is you put in the zip code or the city and state you're working in, and it brings up a Google map, and it shows you all the surrounding towers as well as which carriers operate those towers. So cellreception.com is a good tool for that. It depends on if you could if you needed to. So in most cases you don't need to. What happens is, got a lot of thoughts. I'm trying to sort them out here. There's a lot of good answers to this. So with a Yagi directional antenna, the Yagi directional antenna, it's wideband, so it it will capture and bring in all of the frequencies for all of the carriers. So even if you've got the Yagi antenna pointed at the Verizon tower, and the AT&T tower is 100 degrees in the opposite direction, it'll still grab that signal and bring it in. It just won't provide it as much gain as when the Yagi antenna is pointed straight at the tower. So it'll still capture 360 degrees of signal. It just changes how much gain is added. So for instance, when we're pointed right at the Verizon tower, we're going to get full 7 decibels of gain for that frequency. As you go off of the center point of that Yagi antenna, the gain decreases. So if you've got another tower that's, say, 70 degrees off of the center, you might only get 3 decibels of gain there. You're still going to bring that signal in. You're just going to get less gain. So some scenarios, right? If you've got 2 carriers that are very weak and are in opposite directions, then yeah, you can use 2 Yagi directional antennas, point them at the 2 towers that are in the different directions, bring them into a 2-way splitter, bring those signals combined into the booster. This is where the benefit of an omnidirectional antenna comes in, and this is why we want to make sure we get an omnidirectional antenna in our offering, because that omni will just grab everybody, bring them all in, give all of them the same amount of gain, and go from there. So different installers have different techniques for this. The benefit of a Yagi antenna is you can balance that signal more, right? Like I said, because the gain changes as you go off of the center point of that antenna beam, you can kind of adjust it, right? If you center it, you've got two towers 45 degrees apart from each other. You position that Yagi antenna correctly, you can equal the gain from both. If I point that beam right between the middle of those two, and they're both equal distance from center, then you're only going to get, you're going to get equal or 4 decibel of gain, for instance, for both of those. So this is something more that we take case by case. And again, this is really why getting those signal readings is critical, so that we can determine, okay, yeah, we only need 1 antenna, or we may need to use 2 antennas. I've never seen a job where anybody's used more than 2 Yagi directional antennas. You would never need to have 5 antennas for 1 booster because you've got 5 frequencies, right? That would never be the case. At the most, you would need to use 2, and like I said, bring them into a splitter and go from there. And this is where BTX can come in and provide you with the support based on your signal readings to help determine that. But as we move into the future, this is why we want to offer omnidirectional antennas, so that you can just grab that signal from every direction and provide equal gain to everything. But again, it's case by case, and some situations you may need more than 1 Yagi, and we can determine that based on the signal readings you take.
So somebody had asked the question, does the signal meter help locate the frequency direction? And it sounds like it does.
Yeah, it does. If I'm holding it and I'm pointing to the west, and then I turn my body and point the other way, you'll see that frequency lessen, right? If that's the direction that tower is, if I turn my back to it, you'll see that drop in signal strength. So it'll help you identify where that is. And even some other benefits of that signal meter too. I can hook that signal meter up right to the end of the cable run coming off my outdoor antenna, and I can actually see how much signal's coming in. So you can actually adjust or pivot that Yagi antenna until you see that strongest signal possible. So you can use that as well. You can use that alone without that website to help you identify where the towers are, or you could use it in conjunction with the website. Okay, I know the tower is off to the northeast. Let me point the antenna over there. Okay, done. Now I plug it into my signal meter. Let me just turn it a little bit. I turn it a few degrees each direction to really see where I'm going to get that best dB or that best decibel or that best signal strength possible based on where I point that antenna.
Excellent. I think that covered everything. Thank you very much.
Not a problem. And those are great questions, folks. I appreciate those types of questions. And a lot of those are going to be case by case. And that's, again, it's after a few jobs, you won't need to rely on us for support. You won't have to call on us for support. But those are the kind of questions after you do a site survey, that's where the installer goes out and takes a look at the building and the signal strengths and reports that information back, and we work with you to provide a solution. But those are the kinds of things that we can support you with and help you understand and to really maximize everything from there. So great questions. Those are things you encounter, and those are going to be case-by-case situations. So what are the benefits? You know, this is a no-brainer, right? It's long story short, you get a signal where you didn't. That's the best benefit of all. But you know, to get into more detail, we're going to greatly improve the reception for both cellular voice and data. We're also going to increase mobile device battery life. You know, our cell phones are always looking for the best signal. You know, I'm sure all of you have been on an airplane. When you if you don't put your phone in airplane mode, your phone keeps looking for a signal the whole flight. You get to where you're going, that battery's dead because that phone was just working the whole time trying to find a signal. The same thing happens in the building. If you don't have a good signal in there, that phone's just working, trying to find a signal, and it drains that battery. So with a cell booster in place, it brings a strong signal in there. Your cell phone locks onto it and extends the battery life of the cell phone. Cut down on drop calls, right? I'm sure we've all been in places where we know, okay, I can't walk down that hallway, or I can't go into so-and-so's office because my cell phone dies in there. This eliminates that. It allows you to move throughout the building and not experience drop calls anymore. Likewise, you can go from outside. You can be in your car coming into work and you're on your phone. You can get out of your car, walk into the building, and not drop that call. There's a clean handshake. That signal hands off cleanly from the tower to the booster, and likewise, you can be on the phone at work and go to get in your car and not have that call drop. You know, so many times we've been places where we go, okay, I got to call you back. I'm going into a dead zone. You know, we're getting rid of those dead zones. So this eliminates those drop calls. Increase data transfer speeds. Again, the better the signal, the better the data transfer speed. So get a booster in place, it's going to increase those data transfer speeds. I talked about it earlier, but we are carrier agnostic, so you're not having to buy a different device, a different booster for each carrier. We've got you covered. All of the major carriers, and all the carriers, frankly, from Cricket to, I don't even know, some more regional carriers, they all use these same frequencies. These are not frequencies that the carriers don't have the ability to just free-for-all use whatever frequency they want. They have dedicated frequencies because, you know, you guys are aware of this. You know, public safety uses some of the other frequencies, and radio, and there's all kinds of other frequencies that are tabbed for other uses. So we just boost the frequencies the carriers are required to do cellular transmission on. So it's carrier agnostic. You don't have to worry about not being able to provide support for one carrier, buying multiple devices to support all carriers. And all of our equipment, all of the WilsonPro equipment is commercial grade. We're using metal casings. These are metal housings. This is not a plastic device. This is not something that's made of some cheap, low-cost material. Ceramic filters inside to provide, you know, cleaner boost and cleaner signal. Gallium arsenide chips as well. So again, they're a high-quality electronic component that allow for cleaner signal. And so all the engineering, all of the design, everything put into the WilsonPro product is to ensure that it's a viable, strong commercial solution for you. So what's the market? Again, long story short, every single building. You know, if you just want to cross all those names off the top and just say, yeah, I'm going to go after every building, chances are you're going to be successful. But, you know, what are some markets we've seen a lot of success in? All of the ones listed here, you know, professional audio video installers, those people in the buildings putting in high-grade AV material, high-grade AV equipment, healthcare, education, hospitality, IT, every single building out there needs this. You know, there's a recent study done. The hospital industry, the healthcare industry, was one of the highest spending industries last year in the cellular world. The healthcare industry put the most money of any kind of industry out there into cellular technology, be it devices, be it boosters, solutions to provide, you know, signal inside. We've all been to a hospital. They're all nice, big, solid concrete walls, all kinds of corridors. You get really deep inside hospitals. Your signal drops. This is very frustrating to doctors and medical professionals. they're more reliant on devices than anybody, and so for a doctor to not have the ability to use a cellular device is an issue. And so, I had a job last year where the doctors were actually threatening the board to leave this hospital if they didn't get them a solution to be able to use their devices. You know, educational institutes. We live in a world where people need to make sure their devices happen. If an emergency happens on a school campus, they want to make sure that they can call out. They need to be able to dial 911. They need to be able to reach the outside world and let them know that there's something going on. So a lot of hospitals, there's more and more grants out there. There's a lot going on in that industry, tabbing money, earmarking money for solutions for this. And schools don't have a ton of money, and this is why this is a very viable solution. Hospitality, we've all been to hotels. I would say 7 out of 10 hotels I go to, terrible cell signal. So you get this, but the list goes on, and it's the beauty of this product is we're working with customers that are going into buildings selling solutions already. It's such an easy transition. It's such an easy sell to look at your phone or to ask your customer, hey, how's your cell coverage in here? If they've got poor cell coverage, they'll let you know about it. And it's such an easy add-on. Hey, I got something that can fix that for you too. And one of the things out there is this is still a newer technology. I mean, cell boosters have been in the world for over 30 years, but it's still really early in the understanding and people even knowing that there's a solution out there. And I'm sure there's people on this call that before this were not aware of a solution out there. And this goes back to the old days before the carriers were supportive of it. If you went to the carrier and said, hey, what do you have to fix this? Chances are they either say, nothing, we don't have anything for you, I'm so sorry. Or they offer something like a femto cell or a small cell. These may be words that you've heard or may hear out there. Or a DAS solution, distributed antenna system. What these are active DAS solutions. The downside to all of these solutions is they're expensive, they take time to deploy, and they're carrier specific. And so really, cell boosters are in a unique place, low cost, easy to deploy, and non-carrier specific.
Hey, Michael.
I'm going to get into it. Yeah, please.
Sorry. Somebody asked a really good question. Is there a limitation on how many devices can connect to each antenna?
Very good question. As far as the outdoor antenna, or the donor antenna, we like to refer to the outdoor antenna as a donor antenna. It's donating that signal to the booster. You can have, technically it's limitless. Our recommendation is no more than 3 boosters to 1 donor antenna. So what you would do is you'd have your donor antenna on the roof, bring it into a 3-way splitter, split that into 3 boosters, and then run that into the indoor antennas. So, if you have a system, a situation where you're covering 120,000 square feet of space or 150,000 square feet of space and you're having to use 5 boosters, you're not going to have 5 donor antennas on the roof. You can have just 2 donor antennas, for instance, and split those in. Likewise, on the other side, on the downside, the inside antennas are what we like to call the broadcast antennas. We don't recommend more than 4 broadcast antennas per booster. It's just what happens is you start to saturate or divide that signal up too many times if you start to go more than 4. It's not to say that it can't be done. Again, this all goes back to how good that outside signal is. If you have a really good outside signal, you can get away with more cable, more indoor antennas. I was actually, and I'm going to put this out there, but don't necessarily run with this. This was a unique situation, but I just want to share this because it shows that it can be done. Is when I was up in Minnesota this week, we had an install where the customer had actually had 8 indoor antennas and upwards of 700 feet of total cable. We were able to power all 8 of those antennas with 1 booster. It was a rare case. Basically, it worked because we had a great outside signal. This is an older college, solid brick. It's all brick building, all interior concrete walls. But outside, I could see the Verizon tower from the front of the building. And the Verizon tower was, probably a quarter mile away, half mile away. And so the signal was great. It had a great outside signal, and that allowed for us to cover so much space. So again, it does vary depending on the outside signal. And so rule of thumb, in most cases, we don't recommend more than 4. But if you've got a customer that gets it, is willing to experiment and do trial and error, they're going to be the most successful. And they can really push the limits of this as long as they understand and really comprehend the fact that it's all going to be dictated by that incoming signal. You can, it varies from, like I said, 4 to 6 to 8. But rule of thumb, I wouldn't recommend more than 4 indoor.
Michael, let's get just a bit more
Yes.
granular. How about how many devices are actually like per antenna inside of a building?
Again, that depends on outside signal and relationship to the indoor antenna. Wilson is actually in the process of creating a user calculator, so you'd actually be able to plug in what the outside signal is to determine how many simultaneous users you could have. But we've never encountered a situation where we've exceeded the maximum number of users. And all of our time in putting these in hospitals and schools and auction houses and it runs the gauntlet. We've never had a situation where we've exceeded the amount of users. And if you think about it, right, how many people can you really fit in 20,000 square feet that would all simultaneously be using a device all at the same time, all on the same frequency, all doing the same thing, right? So what's the real world scenario? Like I said, I was at this college. I keep referencing this college because it's fresh in my mind, and it was a great opportunity. But I walked by the cafeteria, and we were there right at lunchtime, and there were hundreds of students in the cafeteria, and a lot of them were on their devices, and you could see everybody was just working away, no issues. I was able to use my phone, and so there really isn't a hard cap on it, and really apply it to a real world situation. We're boosting 5 frequencies. We're doing voice and data for all carriers. So, what are the chances you would ever have 100 Verizon, 100 AT&T, 100 T-Mobile, all in the same 20,000, 30,000 square feet of space, all trying to make a phone call simultaneously? Real world situations, you just wouldn't even encounter that. So, in a real situation, you might have 35, 40 people of each carrier all using a device simultaneously. We're going to be able to carry it, support it. Nobody's going to experience lag or drop calls or anything like that. So there is no hard number. There is no hard answer to that question. But in real-world situations, we've never encountered a situation where we've exceeded capacity on a booster.
Hey, when we're talking about different markets, somebody just said, what about like something where you would have a lot of people using a signal at the same time, like a convention center or some sort of an arena or some place where you're really relying on a lot of people are relying on using their device at the same time. And maybe in the same vein, so I've had 2 questions come back and say, why would you ever use a small cell or a DAS system these days when a booster system like this exists?
So, so in regards to a convention center, to be frank, there's going to be some situations where this isn't the right solution. Dallas Cowboys Stadium, signal boosters, it's just, we're getting 85,000 people in there. You're talking about huge square footage. This might not be the right solution for that. That's where DAS comes in, is those huge arenas. The Rose Bowl down in Southern California, for instance, is in the process of putting a DAS solution in. DAS has its place. DAS definitely has its place, and it is those larger spaces like that, the Mall of America or something like that, right? But and that's where DAS still has a place, and DAS still works. Femtocells, small cells. Small cells are used more in outdoor applications. Our products are only approved for indoor, in-building application, not outdoor coverage, and so those are some of the places where those products live. But that's a great question, right? Why would anybody use DAS? And really, even the DAS world is understanding that, and they're looking at signal boosters as a secondary offering. because DAS is just not practical in smaller, it's hard to put a number on it, but I like to use 200, 300,000 square feet and below is where we live. And DAS lives in that 500, 800 million square foot places. So yeah, like in a convention center, it's really going to come down to what's the square footage. And again, we've like I said, we've got a 36-story high-rise in downtown Los Angeles. It's the solution is in, and we haven't seen issues with drop calls. I mean, if you're working with a really poor outside signal, and when I say poor, maybe 85 decibels, 90, the higher the number, the weaker the frequency, just for reference. So, when I say a good signal, I'm talking 50, 60, 70 decibels. When I say poor signal, I'm talking 85, 90 decibels of signal. So in a poor signal situation, you might have some capacity issues because there's just not enough bandwidth there. But in a situation where you've got a good signal, you're never going to maximize that. But again, like I said, in my 2.5 years in this industry, I've never had anybody say we exceeded capacity. So it's very rare that you would ever run into that. Again, you just have.
Sorry, Michael. We're at the top of the hour, so I want to make sure that we don't miss any of the, of the big subjects. So really the point is, depending on the application, you definitely, this is going to be the right application, the right type of product for almost all scenarios with our dealers who are on the call today. I mean, this is a product they can go in when they see that there's a low cell signal. This is something they can offer to their customers, and it works really awesome in all of those types of scenarios that you're looking at. So I think we probably want to move on so that we make sure we don't miss anything else. And I want to encourage everybody out there, the attendees out there. Again, I know we've given this 1 hour, but if you have other questions, keep them coming so that Michael can get to them and try and help answer them all. Perfect.
So yeah, so we've got the solutions, we've got the market, anybody in a building, right? So what are some selling points? What are some tools you can go forward with and offer this to your customer? Things like we're going to boost voice and data for all major carriers. Having a carrier agnostic solution is huge. All the competition, everything else out there, as far as DAS, is not agnostic. It's carrier specific. That's a huge advantage of this product. Less expensive than an alternative solution. DAS systems, you're looking at anywhere from $3 to $3.50 a square foot of coverage for a traditional DAS solution. With our product, you're looking at anywhere from 35 to 50 cents a square foot of coverage for a solution. That's a huge difference. 200,000 square foot spaces do not want to be spending $850,000 on a solution. 200,000 square foot spaces, they have a budget that can handle and pay, 50,000 or 100,000 for a solution. If you ever run into a situation where DAS has already been on site and bid it out, you're going to win that one almost every time. Sometimes people are going to not even believe that you can solve this at such a lower cost, but it's the reality of it. We're not having to rely on fiber cable. We're not having to do backhaul to towers. We're not having to do construction. It's such an easier alternative, lower cost solution. Deployment time is minimal. We're not having to get carrier approval. You run some cable, you mount some antennas, you do a little bit of tweaking, you got a job done in less than a week. With a DAS solution, those can take anywhere from 12 to 18 months. You got to coordinate with carriers, you got to get approvals, you got to do, it's amazing how long a DAS solution takes to get approved. Again, that college, one of the major ways the installer won that job is they'd been proposed a DAS solution that was going to take 14 months to deploy. The integrator went in there and said, I can have this done in the school basically said, okay, well, we want to start this once school gets out May 30th. When can you have it done? And he said June 15th. And the decision makers were blown away by that. But that's the reality of it. You don't have that long deployment time. And so if somebody needs a solution now, you can take care of that. Generate additional revenue through installation. We're all looking for additional ways to make money. This is another great tool to have in your toolbox. This is such an easy add-on, an easy sell when you're already in that building selling a customer a solution. It's such a great add-on. It's so nice to be able to offer this up. And like we've talked over and over again, this is something that is experienced all across the country in building after building after building. And it's carrier approved. You know, you don't have to work with the carriers, which is a beautiful thing. Carriers can be such a hassle, such a pain. There's no need to work with carriers on this solution. So we're close to the end here. I'm going to go ahead and kind of give you a brief overview of the products. So this is the line you're really going to focus on. This is the WilsonPro line. We have 3 basic boosters in this offering, our Pro 70, our Pro 70 Plus, and our Pro 70 Plus Select. That one in the middle there, the Pro 70 Plus, that's the one you're really going to want to focus the most on. That really fits your market, that fits what you do. That's really the one that we suggest and recommend that you promote the most. The Pro 70, it has a little bit different components. It's designed a little bit different. There's some few things that are different about it internally that bring that coverage area down on that. And so, you know, the Pro 70 is more maybe if you're doing some spot coverage, maybe if you're only trying to cover a conference room or 1 or 2 locations inside a building, or maybe there's a spot that the Pro 70 Plus didn't cover, didn't get a signal to. You know, the Pro 70 is a good kind of spot coverage area or a small office building solution. The Plus covers more space. It's available in both 75 ohm and 50 ohm, so be mindful of that when you're working off the price list. You know, if you're working with 50 ohm cable, and I believe, actually I take that back, I believe Kim told me you guys are just offering the 50 ohm, which is really the right way to go. That works with your end connectors and your LMR 400 cable and things like that. So the Pro 70 Plus, that's the one to focus on. The Pro 70 Plus Select, it's pretty much the same as the 70 Plus. It just has the ability to manually adjust the uplink and downlink. This is really something more for people that have been in this industry for a long time. They like that ability to manually make adjustments to it. It doesn't make it any stronger. It just really allows you to lower the gain. And there's just some installers in this industry that they prefer that functionality. The product is designed and engineered to not have to do all that. You don't really have to do any kind of manual adjusting. These are built with very sophisticated software that do adjusting on their own. And so you don't really need to worry about that Select. The Select does have some applications, like if you're doing maybe a solid concrete stairwell or a parking structure somewhere, you know, there can be cases, very few, very rare, so I don't want anybody to get hung up on this. But there are some few rare cases where you can actually have too much signal inside and it can affect the booster. So like I said, like if you're in a concrete enclosed stairwell, that signal bounces around in there. It tends to be a smaller space, and the Select helps in situations like that. But the Pro 70 Plus is really, really what you want to focus on. That's the product of choice. That's where you're going to be the happiest at. And again, these are the products, if you're in a commercial space, you want to go with the WilsonPro solutions. So there is one other, one other player in this booster industry, and so if you run up against them, it's important that you're armed with be able to answer, well, what's the difference between you and Company X? And these are some competitive advantages that really set us apart. Long story short, we work better in environments where there's a good outside signal than the competition. And these environments where the signal is good is increasing more and more. The carriers are going around. They're doing a great job at making their outside signal stronger. They're turning up their towers. They're putting more towers in. And so in more and more places you go, we're starting to see better outside signals than ever before. The downside is with the competition, they don't adjust. They don't account for these strong signals. They're more focused on rural, and they're not taking into account strong signal environments. And so without getting into too much, I'll give kind of a recap on these. Highest downlink power. Basically what this means is with a good incoming signal, we can add more power. Real quick too, so downlink is signal coming into the building. Uplink is signal going out to the tower. So downlink is really what we want. The better the downlink, the more power we're going to get, the more coverage we're going to get in the building. So with a strong incoming signal, WilsonPro can add more downlink power than the competition. We can add up to 12 decibel more of downlink power to our booster than the competition. That's why we quote that we can cover up to 35,000 square feet of space with our booster, whereas the competition is only going to tell you up to 20,000, because we can get more coverage with a good outside signal than the competition. We also offer a higher uplink power, up to 3 decibel more. The beauty of this is we can work farther away from a carrier tower than the competition because we've got more power going out to be able to make that communication. We have a stronger overpowering and shutdown threshold. Basically what this means is our booster will take up to 10 dB more signal strength than the competition to be able to, before it shuts down. Basically what that means is if the incoming signal from the competition is stronger than 55 decibels, their booster shuts down. The only way to offset that is to add attenuation, manipulate the outside antenna to actually try to weaken that signal so that it's not stronger than 55 decibels. With the WilsonPro product, we can accept up to 45 decibels of signal. So again, environment where there's a good outside signal, we're going to work better than the competition. Intelligent shutdown management. This is huge. You know, the FCC requires that boosters shut down if they have too much incoming signal. With the WilsonPro product, you know, so that kind of relates to the previous point here. So with the competition, if they hit a stronger signal than negative 55 coming in, that band shuts down. The only way to get that band back on is to physically go out and repower the booster. Turn the power off and turn it back on. So you're in a situation where the boost, you do an install and you leave and then the signal changes. Signal's always fluctuating. If you were to watch a cellular signal on a signal on the signal meter or on a spectrum analyzer, it's always fluctuating. 68, 75, 65, 72, 70, it's always fluctuating. And so if you do an install at one time of the day and then the carrier changes their tower, maybe the load in general, the general usage in that area for that cell tower decreases and that signal gets stronger and that booster overpowers, the competition's going to shut down and stay off. With the WilsonPro product, our software is monitoring that. As soon as that signal strength moves or goes back into within the acceptable levels, the band automatically turns on. So you're not going to have to go back out there and flip a power switch because a band overpowered, because in the middle of the night nobody was on the network and the signal got really strong and turned off the booster. So that's a very critical part to an installer, and it's going to save you a lot of time and money not having to physically go out there, or worse yet, call your customer and say, hey, can you go in the IT closet and flip that power switch because your booster's not working right now. That's a terrible call, and you don't want to have to make. So it's a huge benefit of our product, and this is something I've experienced time and time again. And then lastly, sophisticated software. Our booster's doing a great job to monitor that signal strength and add gain and take away gain to maximize the performance and utilize that and make sure that you're always getting max boost at all times. The competition is much more of a hardware company. They don't have software engineers. And so as that signal changes, as that signal's fluctuating, the booster doesn't keep up with it. And you can see dramatic differences in coverage as the incoming signal changes. Whereas with our booster, you're going to have a constant gain, you're going to have a constant signal all the time because our software is always monitoring that and adding the proper gain to that signal. So we had already talked about the signal meter, but here's a picture and a little bit of information on it. Like I said, this is a must-have for site surveys. This is the critical way of going out there on site, taking readings, making sure the booster is going to perform properly, reporting back to BTX in order for them to be able to provide you with a solution and give you a recommendation. Having that signal meter is going to be the right tool for you. We already talked about it. Maximize outdoor antenna performance, helps with positioning. You can see that gain. You know, it's a great tool too to be able to provide the customer with proof of performance. You go in, you put a solution in place, you turn the booster off, you show them how much signal they have inside using the signal meter. You turn the booster on and you show them. You can physically show them on the screen. You just went from an 87 signal to a 68 or whatever the numbers may be. So it's a great way to show your customer, hey, I've got you signal where you never had coverage before. It's a very viable tool for that. LED display, rechargeable batteries. It's a no-brainer. At MSRP of $249, you just can't go wrong. And just to kind of give you a brief overview, like I said earlier, WilsonPro, that's what you want to focus on. If you're in a commercial space of any kind, WilsonPro is what you want to go with. That's going to give you your best performance. That's what everybody's going to be the most happiest with. But just so you're aware, I don't ever want you to miss a situation or have to turn a job away because you weren't aware that there was a solution for it. Our WeBoost line consists of our home 4G. This is a low-cost 1 to 2 bedroom solution, outdoor antenna, desktop antenna. Our Connect 4G, this will cover your whole home up to 6,000 to 10,000 square feet. Handles, maybe 5 to 10 users. And the reason you get fewer users on a WeBoost product is again, it's because of the components used inside. We don't use the high-grade materials in the WeBoost products that we do in the WilsonPro because they do add a bit more cost. And WeBoost, more residential, we have to be more cost sensitive. So different components, so we handle fewer users. Connect 4G, and then our Connect 4GX, this does have a little bit higher quality components, and so it does provide faster data rates than the Connect 4G when you have more users. So again, just to kind of give you a quick overview, those are our WeBoost residential solutions. Our WeBoost mobile solutions, our 4GS, this is a single user. The booster's actually in the cradle, so when you put the phone in the cradle, it provides that boost to the handset. So if you're using Bluetooth or speaker or whatever you're using there, it's a good individual phone car booster. Our 4GM covers the full vehicle, and then our 4GX, which provides full vehicle coverage, again, slightly higher quality components than the M, so it can handle more users, more data speed. The 4GX is a great solution for RVs, emergency dispatch vehicles, command centers, things like that, buses. Wilson offers a full line of accessories, so you're not necessarily having to jump around and get all the parts you need for an install from multiple suppliers. And I know BTX has you covered anyway, right? BTX, I've seen the BTX catalog. You're not going to need to go elsewhere to get parts. Between Wilson and BTX, we're going to have you covered, from antennas to cables to mounting solutions, whatever it may be. We got you covered. So that concludes my presentation of information. We will open the floor now for questions. I really appreciate everybody taking time out of their busy days to discuss this. BTX, make sure you rely on BTX as your first level of support, and we can provide you with whatever you need. Make sure you get the right solution. But again, look forward to a booming 2016. This industry is going to take off. There's some things that aren't being shared yet in regards to this industry, but this is really going to become a prominent solution. This is really going to be promoted by a lot of huge players in this industry, and it's really going to boom in 2016. And so it's a great opportunity for all of you. So again, thank you for your time, and we'll go ahead and open up for any questions we have.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Michael. We do have a couple of questions, so if people want to hang on the line, or if they want to ask questions, now's the time. Can you go over, Michael, what comes in what we're calling the toolkit, or your installer kit that includes the meter?
Yeah, let me see. I do apologize. I don't have that on the top of my head.
And I don't have our price sheet open, or I could read it. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. I do apologize. I don't have that at my fingertips here. So the toolkit. So basically, the toolkit comes with the meter, an antenna, pole mounting assembly. So basically, what this is for is to, so this basically will allow you to locate and determine that best solution. So we're giving you a booster, we're giving you I take that back, there's not a booster included. So we're giving you the meter, we're giving you an outdoor antenna, we're giving you a length of cable and a mounting pole to be able to take that exterior antenna and be able to hook it up to the signal meter to maximize that incoming signal. So it allows you to basically identify the best location for your outdoor antenna as well as best position for that outdoor antenna by using the antenna and the meter in conjunction with each other to point it, turn it, and find that best signal and then move forward. So you can use this on site surveys, right? You can go out with just this toolkit. You don't have to have a booster yet. You go out with this toolkit and you can figure out how good or what the outside signals are and how much signal we can really get in. So you can use a signal meter by itself, or to even get more accurate information, you can use the toolkit, which adds that antenna that's going to give you a little bit more gain, and it'll help you identify how good your signal is for all 5 frequencies based on, you know, what that reading is coming off of that cable, which is ultimately what's going to come into the booster. So it's a more of a surveyor kit. The signal meter is adequate on its own. This just is another level of accuracy on outside signal strength.
Awesome. We also got the question in, does the signal meter only work for Wilson products or can it work everywhere?
I'm going to say only Wilson products. No, it can work anywhere. You know, it's just the carrier, the signals are just out there. So we're reading the signal. Our product uses those same signals. The competition uses those same signals. So the meter is just to read signal. It's not specific to a product only. It can work. It's going to give you a signal reading for any application that may need to know that information, I guess is the best way to put it.
Okay, great. Maybe, you know, because obviously everybody out in who's on this call, they're mostly dealers, can you talk about an estimate on how long it takes to do a site survey?
I would say, again, it's always going to depend on the size of the building. You know, that college campus where they had 4 buildings, they were out there for about a day. But that was 4 buildings, multiple stories. You know, these are 4 large college buildings, and so they were out there for about a day. But if you're doing a single building, you can get done in a couple of hours. You know, really what you're doing is you're going out, you're taking outside signal readings. That'll take you, you know, 20 minutes, half hour at most. You're going inside, walking the building, kind of determining the layout, the materials, where you can run cables. You know, talking to the customer about am I limited to cable trays that you have in place, or do I, you know, do you have conduit, or do I have more free form to run the cable where I need to? So really, you could get it done in, you know, 2 to 4 hours in most cases.
Sweet. Okay, good. Hey, I have a good question. Of course, this is important for all of us who live in the tri-state area and on the East Coast. In New York City, we never have access to the roof in a high-rise building. Do you have an indoor or another way, an indoor-outdoor antenna, or another way to get that signal, and how good, reliable is it?
You can. So it's not ideal, and I get that. And really, you know, what you're going to run into is you could put like a panel antenna in a window and use it as a donor antenna. But what you run into, the biggest issue you may run into there is adequate separation. There is a requirement for separation between indoor antenna and outdoor antenna. When you've got an outdoor antenna, that building acts as a barrier, so that helps. It's like a speaker and a microphone, right? You get them too close together, you're going to get feedback, and it's going to shut the system down. So if you're using an antenna in a window, it can work, but you might run into a situation where it provides feedback to a close-by antenna, and it might shut the system down. So it can be a little tricky. It can be done, but it is tricky. We just released a new product called the Echo. It's really a 2,000 to 3,000 foot solution that is specifically designed to not have to put an antenna outside, but it's not a commercial solution. It's a small residential. If you're doing a, you know, it's a small solution. So if you're selling to one guy in one apartment, or somebody on one floor of the building in one office, you know, it might be a viable solution. But really, to make this a full building commercial solution, it really is going to require that antenna on the roof. If that's something that can't be done.
Hey, Michael, I'm just going to interrupt you. And Alberto, if you wanted, I think, or it was Jean, I'm sorry, whoever asked the question. I think what they're saying is they can't go out there and immediately see where the signal is because they don't have access kind of to the roof. But maybe I'm wrong. But maybe they'd have access to the roof when they're going to go ahead and put in a solution. If somebody could just.
And sure, and again, I mean that happens, but really you have to set the expectation at that point, and you're going to need to set the expectation of the customer. You know, if I take readings on the ground, most cases the readings on the roof are going to be better than what they are on the ground. So if I'm on the ground and I get 75 decibel readings, chances are I've got that or better on the roof, so that's good. But again, it's just the more accurate the information, the better performance you're going to get out of the system. And I think that the best way to conquer that is to set that expectation of the customer, be able to explain to them, if I don't have access to the roof, I understand that, but I just need to let you know that it could affect the final performance of the system, because that's really what I need to know, is how good that signal is on the roof. Now, like on this college, for instance, it had these sloped cedar shake roof with moss on it. The guy was not going up there to take signal readings, so he walked around on the ground floor and saw that there was adequate signal, and when he put the booster in, it worked great. So you can still use that, but if you're on the fringe, I think that's where it comes into play more. If you're walking around on the ground floor or the ground level outside the building and you're on the fringe of coverage, you've got an 88 or a 91 dB signal, you want to know how much better it's going to be on the roof, or you're going to just have to base everything on that weaker signal. So it's doable. You can use that, but it may change how well the system works in the end.
So what about, I know that you talked about that Echo product, but what about mounting the outside antenna someplace other than the roof? Like, can it be?
Yeah, you can mount it on the.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had people place it on the side of a building. Again, it's just, you don't want the building shielding your signal from a tower, right? If you've got it on the west side of the building on the wall, and your Verizon tower is on the east side, and you've got a big concrete building, you're shielding that antenna from getting a good signal. So all these options will work. It just depends on how much it affects that incoming signal. It all goes back to that.
Okay, perfect. I would imagine it's pretty, I think it's pretty clear to everybody how this kind of works. And we know that it's a case-by-case basis. BTX is here to help with doing those site surveys and walking through those site surveys. And I know, Michael, you are the commercial expert. And as these questions come up on a case-by-case basis, we can always find out answers and find a way to make it happen.
Yes, and ultimately we will find a way to make it happen.
Exactly. All right, so distance separation between the donor antenna and indoor antenna, what is that?
I know I'm sounding like a broken record, but it depends on that outside signal, but in most cases anywhere from 60 to 85 feet.
Okay.
Now, if you have a concrete roof or a solid concrete building, then you don't need as much separation because that building acts as a barrier. Quick trick for installers, this is something I learned a long time ago. If you're using a ceiling mounted antenna pointed downward, you put a piece of aluminum foil. I know it sounds pretty simplistic and not real fancy, but you put a piece of aluminum foil on top of that antenna above the ceiling tile. It creates a barrier, and you can get a lot less separation. So there's ways around that too. There's a rule of thumb of 65 to 85 feet, but there's ways around it. We can make it work.
Excellent. Excellent. Are there any final questions? I know that we've had quite the conversation. Lots of people have been asking lots of great questions. Just want to make sure we don't miss anything. And we've gone way over, so thank you for all of you who've kind of hung in there to the very end. All right. Well, I think I'm going to go ahead and end the call. Michael, I thank you very, very much for going through this with our customers. I have a slide up on that everybody should see that has our phone number and our email and certainly our website. Feel free to always reach out to your outside salesperson or to myself, and we'll make sure that We work with you to get you what you need, but we think this is an awesome opportunity, everybody. I think this is a great way to get some additional revenue, something that's really, especially for the AV integrators out there, it's really unique. So hopefully everybody will take this and go out and start selling it to your end users. So thank you, and have a great weekend.